First launched in 2015, this is the midlife facelift of the Jaguar XE. Now, if you don't know how Jaguar goes about naming its cars, you have the XJ right on top, then you have the XF, and finally you have the XE, the most affordable car that Jaguar makes. Now, the XE competes against the likes of the BMW 3 Series and the Mercedes C-Class, so it clearly doesn't have it easy. But as you'll find through the course of this film, this is a pretty formidable car. Here then are 5 things that work in the XE's favor and 2 that don't. Now, if you like good looking cars like I do, then the XE is a no-brainer. Now, you won't buy this car with your eyes closed, but with your eyes wide open, because this is a beautiful looking car. And in my book, it is by far the best looking car in its class. Now, as part of the facelift, that look has been enhanced with these new headlamps, the aggressive looking bumpers, and lots of black chrome all around. It looks right in profile too. The reasonably long hood, the comparatively short boot, and the minimal overhang give the XE an old school sports car stance, which you would have to agree is very difficult to argue against. Now, the engine under the hood of the Jaguar XE, this particular one, is the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder Ingenium Petrol. It makes almost 250 horsepower, and when you're not gunning it, when you're driving it with a light foot, it is quiet and smooth and friendly and very likable indeed. In fact, inside the cabin, all you can hear is the cabin noise. You can't hear the engine, you can't hear anything else. Now, this engine is mated to a 8-speed automatic. Jaguar has done away with that round dial that used to pop up, which they used to call the handshake, and they've gone for the conventional gear shifter here as part of this facelift. Plus, you get these pedal shifters, and the gearbox, it works best when you drive the car peacefully, but even when you want a hard charge and drive fast, using the pedal shifters, you can use it and keep the engine on the boil and keep yourself engaged. So it works. It's not great, but it works. But when you shift to dynamic and then stamp on the throttle, the engine comes completely alive. I mean, it is even more likable than it is when it's quiet, because you can hear it. It's a nice sounding engine. It's a smooth revving engine, and it just gathers space really, really fast. It's like the world is going past you at an awesomely enjoyable pace. Then you get to a winding road, and you're already looking at down payment and EMI options, because now you really, really want this one. So to begin with, the steering is quick, it's responsive, and it gets the car to do exactly what you want. So that sort of involvement is there. And then the XE doesn't roll around too much around corners. So it's well balanced, it stays flat, the grip levels are high, and the turn-in, it's quick, it's predictable, and plus, it being a rear-wheel drive car, there is that level of engagement and involvement, that purity that comes, which, you know, with the power going to the rear and the front just handling the steering, it just keeps you more involved in what you're doing. So, yeah, it's fun. It has great brakes too. The power and the bite are fantastic, and the brakes are easy to modulate as well. Now, the XE being dynamic and all doesn't take away from the easy to live factor for the car. And let's start with the ride. Now, we're on a reasonably bad road, but you can't hear much of it, you can't feel much of it. It just, especially at low speeds, it absorbs most things really, really well. It's only when you hit a squarish bump that you will hear more than feel that thud that comes in. But overall, the ride is really well rounded. Even when you're traveling at high speeds over undulating roads, the car doesn't wallow unnecessarily. There's no side-to-side movement. So it's pretty planted and flat, which aids with the comfort factor as well. Then of course you've got the steering. The design has changed as part of the facelift, and it is a light steering, but it's also a quick steering. So when you're driving in eco or comfort modes, there's hardly any effort that's required, which makes it really easy to drive in the city. And finally, the visibility, especially over the hood, is fantastic. The low dash helps, as do the raised edge lines of the hood and this relatively slim A-pillar. This is the top spec SE trim, and as standard it gets electrically powered front seats, with the driver's seat getting a memory function as well. The steering is adjustable for both reach and rake, and it has many controls, including those to work the audio system, the voice commands and cruise control. The steering adjustment though has to be done manually. The XE also gets wireless charging, a 2-zone climate control system with rear AC vents, a sunroof, a reversing camera and front and rear parking sensors. There's also auto headlamp and wiper, and decent set of storage spaces all around. There's a glove box, you have usable pockets on all 4 doors, and a boot that can house a full-size suitcase and maybe a carry-on bag alongside. And there's an infotainment system, a large 10-inch plus touchscreen that not only plays songs for you, but it can also help you navigate, respond to voice commands, show you a movie when you aren't driving, and connect to your phone via Bluetooth. The instrumentation on the XE is a TFT unit as well. And not only can you access a plethora of data on it, it also changes color depending on the driving mode you choose. And driving mode, there are 3: Eco, Comfort and Sport. And the modes essentially change the throttle response, the steering effort, and mildly the engine and gearbox character as well. On the safety front, there's ESP and airbags, besides ABS and EBD of course. And the XE, part of Jaguar's LED headlamp setup, also gets an intelligent high beam function. And there's lane change warning as well. Now the XE's interiors don't feel special, they are a bit ordinary in that sense. And when I say ordinary, I mean by class standards. If you were to compare it to, let's say, a Honda City or the Maruti Suzuki Ciaz, then of course, the interiors look outstanding, the material, the quality. But compared to the 3 Series and the C-Class, well, not so much. Also the operability of the rollers, the dials, the buttons, it lacks that same tactile feel, well-engineered feel of some of the Germans. Now if you were to consider the XE as a 4-seater, it would get a pass, and a handsome one at that. It's got decent knee room, it's got more than acceptable headroom, and the shoulder room isn't half bad either. Seats, front and back, at least these 4, you have, they're cushy, they're supportive, and you can spend long hours in them without really getting uncomfortable. But if you were to consider this as a 5-seater, then you've got this huge transmission tunnel to deal with, which means there is very, very limited room to begin with, and you're going to bang your knees against your co-occupants. And the seat back, it's more like a plank than a seat, so it's going to be quite uncomfortable for anybody who sits here. Now I don't know if you could tell, but I really like the XE. Now it costs about 55 lakhs on the road, thereabouts in Mumbai, and I think it's fair price for this top of the line SE model, the petrol version, because you have a car that's fun to drive, you have a car that's easy to drive with visibility, a light steering, light controls, and it performs. The performance it packs in with that engine is really likable. Yes, it has its shortcomings. The interior doesn't feel as special as some of its competition, and the rear space could be a little more. But if you like driving, if you like a good looking car, well, the XE is a fantastic buy.